Welcome to the Capture Arena. Won't you challenge the extremes of capturing? Would you like to compete in the Capture Arena? Sure. You're cleared to enter. Please go to the arena. Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Pokemon Ranger. In the last part we started our browser completion race by doing the Kisara Plains. And now it's time for this. They call me MC Arena. The way I talk, I'm no ballerina. Welcome, yo. We've been waiting, Ranger. We're getting started, yo, Challenger. Y'all look to the field. Yo, standing there upright is our Challenger Delight, Ranger Kyle. Yo, yo, yo. So tell me, Ranger, before you roll onto your challenge, you need information on the rules right here in the Capture Arena? Yes. Alright, Ranger, you betcha. I'll go over the rules with you. All you do is capture Pokemon one after another, right? For every capture, you earn some points. The total number of points you get tells you if you won or not. That's how the Capture Arena works, yo. Getting straight to the point of this joint is to aim for new records. Your challenge lasts until your styler's energy goes to nothing or until time does. If you have to bail out of the challenge, you can always retire by pressing start. Think on your feet, Ranger. There are tricks to scoring big points that you should find. Ready to go with it and hit the ground running? Oh, before you roll, this is what you want to know. The current record holder, Spencer, with the Synapse sizzling 50,000 points. How many Pokemon do you have to capture to notch a number that radical? Alright, yo, set your sights on the new record. Capture, go! The Capture Arena is different than the other two capture challenges in the game in that you're not trying to go for points across a field by scoring new Pokemon for your browser and otherwise. Your goal here is just to capture as many as possible, but you only have 2 minutes to do so at first. You know how we've seen that throughout the game, doing additional loops around a Pokemon when they're captured gives you extra experience? Instead of experience here, every additional loop adds a second to your time, up to 10 seconds. So your goal here is just to get as many loops around as many Pokemon in a row as you can. Every Pokemon has a score associated with it as with the other capture challenges, but the big thing here is that the more Pokemon you capture at once, the more of a multiplier you get, up to at least 3x, I believe. Maybe even goes higher than that, but I seldom get up higher than 3x. I don't think that affects the time bonus at all, but it doesn't need to. Structurally, this place is a little different as well in that it's split up into sub-levels, where there is a boss at the end of every level that requires us capturing a certain amount of Pokemon to reach that boss, usually giving more points to begin with. You know you've reached the boss of a level when the screen starts shaking. With that said, let's get into the Pokemon and the points they're worth. Level 1 has Chikorita, Mudkip, Torchic, Pichu, Zigzagoon, and Tailo that are worth 300, 300, 300, 500, 600, and 800 respectively, but the boss after 10 Pokemon is Rhydon, worth 2,000. Level 2 has Pichu, Bulbasaur, Paris, Bellsprout, Combusken, and Poliwag worth 500, 600, 700, 800, 800, and 1,000 respectively, with the boss requiring 10 captures, and it's a Machoke worth 3,000. I should also note, some levels also have more Pokemon that can be on screen at once. Level 3 is Pichu, Skitty, Meowth, Corphish, Snubbull, and Grimer worth 500, 1,000, 1,100, 1,200, 1,300, and 1,500, with a boss at 11 captures of a Muck with 4,000 points. Level 4 is Pichu, Trico, Phanpy, Mankey, Spinarak, Ludicolo, and Politoed, worth 5,000, 1,200, 1,500, 1,600, 1,800, 2,000, and 5,000. Boss Politoed requires 12 captures. Level 5 is a Pichu, Beedrill, Machop, Magmar, Bagon, and Poliwhirl, worth 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, 3,000, with a capture requirement of 13 for the boss in Dragonite at 6,000 points. Level 6 is a Pichu, Bulbasaur, Combusken, Poliwag, Larvitar, Bagon, Dunfan, Quilava, and Crawdont, worth 500, 600, 800, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, 3,000, 3,500. The boss requires 14 captures. It is a Flygon, worth 7,000. Level 7 is Bulbasaur, Pikachu, Poliwag, Machop, Bagon, Shelgon, Graveler, Poliwhirl, Wartortle, Houndoom, and Magcargo, worth 600, 1,000, 1,000, 1,500, 2,500, 2,600, 3,000, 3,000, 3,000, 3,400, and 4,800. The boss is a Salamence at 15 captures, worth 8,000 rather. Level 8 is Venonat, Croconaw, Meditite, Skitty, Pikachu, Snubbull, Ariados, Ghastly, Ninjask, Crobat, and Hypno, worth 500, 600, 700, 1,000, 1,000, 1,300, 1,500, 2,500, 4,200, 5,800, and 6,000, with a boss at 15 captures that is a Steelix, worth 9,000. Level 9 is Lotad, Slakoth, Ekans, Pikachu, Trico, Phanpy, Poliwrath, Glalie, Golem, Piloswine, Shiftry, and Charizard. Charizard's the boss, it's worth 10,000. The other Pokemon are worth 700, 800, 900, 1,000, 1,200, 1,500, 2,800, 3,800, 4,400, 4,800, and 5,800 apiece. And then the final level is level 10, which is Torchic, Bellsprout, Pikachu, Snubbull, Spinarak, Bagon, Beedrill, Machamp, Raichu, Scizor, Scyther, Blaziken, Heracross, and Venusaur, but there's no boss at this level. That continues until you run out of time of energy. Those Pokemon are worth 300, 800, 1,000, 1,300, 1,800, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 4,000, 5,000, 5,000, 6,000, 6,000, and 7,000 apiece. Levels 1 and 2 have a Pokemon limit of 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 have a Pokemon limit of 3, 7, 8, and 9 have a Pokemon limit of 4, and level 10 has a Pokemon limit of 10. Oh god. There's a lot of Pokemon you can run into here, but in order to get the high score, you only need 50,000. You can do that by the time you reach level 4 even. Okay, time's up. How to go, Challenger? Not bad, or at least not that bad. So here we go, Ranger. Let's see how you scored. The total number of Pokemon captured is 50 Pokemon, and the total score is 75,100 points. Oh my, Ranger, we've got a rocket of a new champion. Spencer's record has been surpassed, and now it's something of the past. Yeah, what do you say, Ranger? You want to take another go at the capture arena, yo? No, thank you. Okay, Ranger, the capture arena is always ready to welcome your next challenge. Bring it! We never need to enter there again, but now we need to head back to Kisara Plains very quickly, because the moment you beat Spencer's high score record at the capture arena, you can now capture his partner Pokemon, a Fiore, here in Kisara Plains. It is located at the central north section, so you need to go up to the northeast and then head west from there. This is probably the Pokemon that isn't like one of the last ones you always find. That took me the longest to find when I first did a browser completion run, if only because it's the only thing locked behind the capture arena, and I thought that was just for high score for friends compared to even this, which you could tell there's new Pokemon to capture very quickly. Fiore's main attack is blowing a single large tornado at you at any point in time. It does do some brief bursts of speed here and there, but whenever it attacks, it stops long enough you can get some loops in. Fiore flies about at a high speed. It also whips up gusts to attack. And now we're done with that area, period. So now it's time for the third and final of the capture challenges, although it's actively the first one you encounter in the game's story. Welcome, I'm MC Fisher. May I interest you in our capture challenge? Ride a Lapras and capture away. If you have a friend Pokemon with you, there's no using Poke Assist. Would you like to take the challenge? Sure. We have a capture challenger. Now may I explain how the rules work? Is that agreeable to you? We already have a good idea. Are you ready? Before you go, there's the usual announcement. The current record holder is Cameron with 3,500 points. Can this record ever be surpassed? Okay, challenger, board the Lapras. Capture, go! So while we only had to capture about half of the Pokemon at Kisara Plain, here in Safra Sea, we need to capture most of the Pokemon. There are, I think, 18 here. We need to capture about 13 of those. And the slightly annoying thing, you can't tell what Pokemon you're actively capturing until you run into it in most cases because they're just portrayed as shadows on the water's surface. The main ones that don't are things like Carvanha and its evolution. Here we got Seadra, the pre-evolution of Kingdra. It bursts out of the water here and there and then roams around forbidden. I think can fire bubbles forward every now and then. Seadra forcefully splits up blobs of water. Capture it before it splits underwater. This is technically an easier capture arena, I think, on the whole, with the main exception being the final remaining leader partner Pokemon, because Pelipper can be found here, I think, after you've beaten Cameron's record, and that one requires a bit of luck to have pop up normally. There are also a lot of Magikarp around here. You can also find Gyarados here if you capture 5 separate Magikarps. Though I think you can only do that one in post-game. This and Kisara Plain have a couple of Pokemon that are post-game exclusive. Gyarados, I think the Skarmory, and I think Horsea and Seadra are the main ones in that regard, from memory. To make up for how flat this area is, though, and since it's all water, they do a good job about placing landmarks visually throughout the entire field. Namely some rocks that are shaped like Pokemon, and there's fog in the bottom right to indicate whenever you're over there. Also, that's a Goldeen. Goldene's annoying in that it doesn't attack. Goldeen can't be captured while it's in the water. Target it when it leaps out. Goldeen, as well as its evolution, just jump out of the water here and there, and that's their main form of doing anything. They don't take many loops, but you have to make them count quickly, otherwise you're missing them for a little bit. Like with the other capture challenges, though, we're mostly going to do a fresh first run and then start cutting to where Pokemon are from there. Speaking of Goldeen's evolution, here's Sea King. These don't show up until you've caught 2 Goldeen to begin with. But their pattern is the exact same. They just jump out of the water here and there and need to get your loops in quickly, otherwise they might run away or you might run out of time and all that jazz. And if you're trying to get more Pokemon done for the score reason, you don't want that to happen. Your only chance to capture Sea King is when it jumps out of the water. You might have noticed right then, we're already up to 175 entries when we finish the main campaign at about 150. So between the post-game story and what we've done already, we've already caught about 25 more Pokemon towards the total of about 210-ish. So So we're doing pretty good on that. The capture challenges really do make those numbers inflate very quickly. Afterwards, it's just going to be browsing through the various areas of the game to see what we missed along the way. So without any further ado, let's look at the challenger results. The total number captured, 11 Pokemon. The total score is 3,900 points. Congratulations! It's hard to believe, but Cameron's long-standing record is no more. What would you like to do now? Would you like another go at the capture challenge? Yep. Yes, the capture challenger agrees, blah, blah, blah. We're going back in. So now that we've beaten Cameron's record, Pelipper spawns near the center of the area, near the lighthouse that is there, which is also the location of the Safra Sea's helper NPC to give you hints on what Pokemon to capture to make other ones show up. In particular, on this particular run-through, I'm making sure I focus on Starmie from memory because there's a Pokemon that will only show up if we capture 2 of them on a single run. And the main reason I'm focusing on them this early is that there are Pokemon I can see above the water surface. The really annoying thing about this area is you really just sort of have to figure out which Pokemon you're dealing with under the water surface based on either the area and what Pokemon you've encountered there before or how they're moving. For instance, there's 2 particular Pokemon that do what that one just did, where the moment you get spotted by them, they flee for a little bit by diving deeper. One of these is a Remoraid. I don't remember if Remoraid has an attack, honestly. I want to say it might be the same as Goldeen and Seaking, where it just hops out and that's it, but it might have a Water Jet attack? I've seldom seen it attack otherwise if it does, though. Remoraid dives deep underwater if it notices rangers, approach it from behind. And it's not the only Pokemon that does that. Nearby, its evolution does the same thing. This is Octillery. Octillery movement-wise is about the same. Moves about, jumps out for a few seconds here and there, and that's about it. But unlike Remoraid, Goldeen, and Seaking, this one actively does have an attack where it'll send out a smog effect that can damage your Styler, similarly to Murkrow. Rather annoyingly, it doesn't really have a tell for when it's about to do that, besides the fact it usually does it underwater. But again, so few loops needed, it's not a very dangerous Pokemon if you go after the capture challenges at the end of the game. Octillery jumps on the water's surface, but its heavy weight quickly sinks it. There is a Pokemon tied to a certain amount of Remoraids, but we'll showcase that later. And there's Pelipper. You were going to ask me for the fish are biting, weren't you? Well, in spite of my humble appearance, I'm a marine biologist engaged in the study of the Safra Sea. I've been in Kamchatka for some time now, observing Whalmer in the wild. By the way, I hope you're okay for time, blah, blah, blah. Want to hear most intriguing tale that was related to me by a sailor? According to him, some kinds of sea Pokemon communicate with each other. For example, Goldeen may communicate to Seaking how they were soothed as a result of being captured by a ranger. Learning that, Seaking would get an overwhelming urge to experience such a capture, and blah, blah, blah. If you captured 2 Seaking, a Whalmer will show up. I was going through the text a little too quickly for me to read, I'm sorry. I want to say this particular set of footage was recorded at like 5 in the morning, so I was tired and probably rushing to get to sleep after I captured all the Pokemon here. I don't remember. Ignoring the Pelipper for now, though, head to the south of the lighthouse and you have a good chance of finding Horsea, which work the exact same as Seadra, in that the moment they hop out of the water, they actively stay on top of it. They have a brief water attack that I think is the same as Poliwags, where it's just a short-range water beam. Don't be fooled by its cute looks. Horsea attacks with blasts of water. And right next to the Horsea is our next Pokemon, and the reason I captured 2 Staryu on this run, Starmie. Staryu are stronger, Starmie are stronger Staryu, rather. Take more loops, do more damage, but they do the same spinning attack at the end of the day. Starmie spins its body to attack. It moves rapidly on the water surface. It is pretty fast as well, I guess there is that too. But that's not the end of that chain. You want to capture a second Starmie, and then go around the south of the lighthouse again, because after you capture 2 Starmie in a single run, another Pokemon spawns, and they're very obvious to notice. It's time for Psyduck. Psyduck can be annoying to capture not because it has an attack that's annoying. It just takes 32 loops, which in the time you give him before it runs away is noticeably tight. Thankfully, it moves slowly enough that you don't need to worry about tracking being a problem, but just be careful all the same. Psyduck is a laid-back Pokemon that likes to vacantly float on the water. And that's the end of that particular run. On this particular run, I'm shooting for Remoraids. I need, I think, 4 of them total? Maybe 3? In order to make the next Pokemon spawn in on a single run. Thankfully, Remoraid are some of the easiest Pokemon to find on the water that are underwater because they're a small shadow that tries to run away from you the moment they spot you by going deeper instead of just trying to actually swim away from you. And they usually spawn in groups of 2. There's some just to the southeast of the entrance, and there's some towards the southwest as well. And after that, the Pokemon you're looking for, I believe, is once again usually towards the south of the lighthouse. A lot of Pokemon that you're looking for are down there. But also on this run, in the southeast, in the foggy area, I found a Sharpedo. Sharpedo is a larger and stronger Carvanha. Down to its attack, not a lot to worry about because you only fight one at a time, usually. Sharpedo swims with only its dorsal fin showing. It charges when it spots prey. You can tell which of these Pokemon you can actively find in the main part of Fiore and which ones you only really tend to find here in the capture area by the fact if they have a field move or not. Because every Pokemon has a group and usually an assist of some sort so that you can't use most of them. And here is the Remoraid reward. In some parts of the map, you'll now find large shadows that are Mantine. Mantine's main thing, weirdly for being a water Pokemon, is charging at the capture line, which can be kind of annoying due to their size, but they take enough loops at this point that you should be used to them. Mantine leaps out of the water, then charges with its massive body. The next Pokemon can take a minute to find, ironically enough, because they only spawn in the last minute of the competition, but they spawn in a set location over here on the far east in groups of about 5. These are Luvdisc. Luvdisc's only ability is jumping out of the water, similarly to Seaking and Goldeen. However, their whole thing is that since they're always found in large groups like the Tauros back in Kisara Plains, you're likely to waste some time here just getting your line broken by proxy of how many there are, and not predicting when they're going to jump out correctly on top of their spacing being a little uneven and weird. And since you can't use Poke Assists in capture areas, you can't rely on like Minin to stun them in midair to make them a bit easier to capture in groups and all that jazz. Pretty good for your score though if you're trying to get the point trophy in though, because each one of these I think is worth 700. In terms of the point breakdown, Psyduck is 1600, Magikarp's 100, Gyarados is 2300, Horsea is 400, Seadra's 800, Goldeen's 300, Seaking is 700, Staryu's 200, Starmie is 600, Remoraid's 200, Octillery is 500, Mantine's 1500. You can find Kingdras around here, but you need to capture 2 Horsea for those. That's 2300. Pelipper is 2301 points, Carvanha's 200, Sharpedo's 400, Luvdisc are 700, and the final Pokemon we're going for right now is 2200. In order to make this final Pokemon that we're going to catch besides the Pelipper spawn in, you need to capture 2 Seaking, which requires capturing 2 Goldeen first. Thankfully, Seaking are pretty easy to find, because if you look around the same points as Goldeen after you've captured 2, especially if you leave the area and come back right after, usually one will spawn in the same place. And the final Pokemon that we're going to see that's not the Pelipper usually spawns once again towards the south of the lighthouse, so you don't have to worry about a lot for finding them. A lot of Pokemon tend to spawn in that area. It's sort of like the center of Kisara Plain for this sector, I guess. It is kind of funny thinking about it though, because in some regard these are meant to be the Safari Zone for the game. But I ultimately find them more interesting than most Safari Zones, if only because there's unique things between all 3 of them. But also the timer, that works like an actual timer, not a step counter, means there's an actual like threshold to worry about. Either way, down here in the bottom left, actually, it wasn't to the south of the lighthouse, is the final new Pokemon that's not the Pelipper for this area, Wailmer. Wailmer's large, and its attack is to spurt water out of its blowhole randomly around it, which can be annoying to get hit by. I think it can also damage you when it breaches the water, but don't quote me on that. It takes a lot of loops, relative to its size, of course, but at this point, you'll probably be so used to dealing with numbers this high around here that you'll be fine. On top of that, because it's a relatively slow Pokemon, if it dives back underwater, you can be patient and wait for it to resurface. Wailmer floats with half its body exposed. It powerfully spouts water to escape? To attack. But now it's arguably time for the most annoying Pokemon of all of them, Pelipper. For one thing, Pelipper actively has the Z-axis in their favor, so they can actively float as high as they want to anywhere near the lighthouse, which sucks in that regard. Sometimes they dive low, but the best way to find a Pelipper usually, or at least the Pelipper, is to get into a battle with a fish Pokemon nearby it, because it'll get sucked into that battle. Pelipper's attack is the same as Croconaut's. It's the water bubble we've been seeing for basically the entire game. It's just that now it has decent speed and a lot of loops tied to it that can be kind of annoying. Dealing with in groups can also be kind of rough in the case you encounter it with other Pokemon. Pelipper wheels high in the sky. It sometimes comes down to sea level. That brings our browser up to 185 out of 210-ish. And that's all 3 of the capture challenges done throughout Fiore. We have finished those, so now the only Pokemon remaining are stragglers in areas that we've been to already, on top of some Pokemon you can't access until post-game to begin with by using Pokemon that are from other areas for field moves. But with that, I'm gonna need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 22, we're going to continue going after the maxed browser and take care of some pretty interesting Pokemon along the way. See you guys then.